Hello, real estate investing fools. Today we are continuing our exploration into modular construction, which if you've watched any videos, one of my absolute favorite topics. So I believe it's the key to developing at scale and really sort of transforming housing and building in general. And I'm so excited to talk to Rich Rozycki. I feel like he's one of the smart people in this space, and I'm really excited. He's the CEO of CRATE Modular, has a deep background in modular prefabrication, worked at corporations like Z Modular and Champion Commercial Structures. And CRATE Modular actually created the first apartment building for homeless veterans in the U.S. made out of recycled shipping containers. I actually saw that one profiled in the LA Times, and that caught my attention a while back. So how did that project first come about?
First of all, thank you for having me on today. But yeah, that project is one of several homeless shelters that we've done. That one came about, the one you're talking about specifically is probably either the Potter's Lane project, or would that be the recent one that was completed in downtown Los Angeles?
No, it was the Potter's Lane one, which is in Orange County, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, the Potter's Lane project was really kind of serves a passion for CRATE, and we have a social purpose to what we're doing and providing homeless shelters and affordable housing for individuals is one of our main goals. And so that was a project that came together pretty quickly. One that I think demonstrated the full capabilities of what modular and specifically container-based modular can be used for. And it's been a very successful project. We worked together with nonprofits to put that together. And it kind of was a launching pad of what we've done now as we've grown as a business. The project, another one I was referencing at the beginning of our conversation was the Vignes project that we just completed in downtown LA. That's part of the Hilda Solis project that really came together very quickly. It was one that was essentially contracted in the fall of last year and delivered substantially complete within about 4 months. And it was designed to quickly get the vulnerable homeless populations into shelters where they can start receiving the help that they need to get back on their feet. And so, yeah, Potter's Lane and all of the projects that we've done since then to kind of grow out of that. So yeah, it was a really good project.
Well, I know that in Los Angeles, the homeless problem is just tremendous. I used to live near downtown, and it's gotten bigger and bigger over the last few years. How did you accomplish a turnaround in only 4 months? That's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it really spoke to the capabilities of modular and the ability and the promise to be able to deliver buildings significantly faster than if you go through traditional methods. And really the way that we were able to do it, we had great partners we were working with. There was a high level of coordination amongst all the entities involved. And at the end of the day, I think people really, banded together, all of the entities that were involved here to deliver on the common goal, which was, to be able to get this project done as quickly as possible so that we could, be able to start helping the 200 to 300 people that were going to be able to be moved in there. And they've been, over the course of the last few months, starting to move people into the complex. And so you're already starting to see some of the goals of this project being realized.
So where do you get your shipping containers from, and how are they refurbished?
Yeah, so we use recycled shipping containers. Basically, we have various brokers that we contact, and depending on what the requirements of the project are, what type of containers are needed, we use those sources to procure them. And then ultimately, the goal that we have with the containers is to, help build a sustainable structure. So that starts with the recycling of a container, but that also kind of leads to everything else that we do in terms of being able to produce in a manufacturing environment where you're reducing the amount of waste. Specifically when you're doing large commercial projects or multifamily projects where you're working in urban environments, say like downtown Los Angeles. Projects that are traditionally built can have a large disturbance on the neighborhood, whether that's noise, whether that's carbon emissions from equipment being, utilized on the site. And so one of the things that we do, in addition to taking a structure and, recycling it is, build in a manner that eliminates a lot of those issues that you experience. And so a lot of times when you're building with modular, you actually are, further ahead when it comes to being able to get those certain certifications like LEED certification that, allow you to achieve certain levels of green building.
Interesting. So are these single-use or multi-use shipping containers, or does it vary?
These are single-use shipping containers. The way that the requirements are now, it's basically you're limited to, at least in California, single-use shipping containers. So what you're doing is taking something that's created for a purpose and really has no potential useful life after that, and you're taking it out of that stock, and being able to take what's a ready-made structure and turn it into buildings.
And so you're doing that in Los Angeles. Do you have a factory?
We do, yeah. We're actually located in Carson, California. We have about 150,000 square foot facility where we produce a variety of products, but primarily we are focused on the multifamily and affordable housing spaces, which also would include homeless shelters. And then we're very involved in the educational sector as well with school work.
So how many are you able to refurbish in a month?
So it depends on the complexity of the project. Certain projects have different requirements, and those can run faster than other types of projects. But, I would say on average, we target somewhere around 3 a day. So if you figure there's somewhere 20 to 22, working days in a month, we're somewhere between 60 to 70 modules a month.
Impressive. So these are stackable, and do you create the structure on site and then sort of move them in, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they are stackable. We do multi-story buildings. It's in a lot of ways what you see on a container ship when you see containers stacked, 10 stories high. The same principles apply to when you're using those for buildings. And so, we have a ready-made structure that is stackable and that takes a lot of the mystery out of the dimensions of a building. And really how it all goes together on site kind of depends on what the project has been designed for. If there's retail and common space that may be better suited to be constructed outside of a modular solution, generally that'll be like a podium, and then what happens is you stack modules on top of that podium from floors 2 to whatever. But then there's other projects where there isn't that kind of common space, and you can essentially set it on a traditional foundation without the need for having to incorporate a traditional say first floor podium.
So modular construction, I know that there's some zoning concerns. How has that been for you so far? And do you feel like there's going to have to be a shift kind of all around the country as modular becomes more popular?
Yeah, I think what we need to be able to do is, as a country, need to standardize more. One of the things that I think has prevented a significant amount of scale in the modular industry, and what I mean by that is companies that, there's some very big players out there, but largely the industry is fragmented with a lot of smaller operators. And part of the reason that you have so many small operators is because the way that modular construction works is essentially you're building to the local building codes. And so because there are variations amongst different geographies, there's variations in what's required to be able to construct the building. And so that's one of the reasons why you don't see maybe a single plant that's building in California shipping projects to the East Coast, is because it's different from their normal designs, snow loads for roofs and things like that. And so I think as we move forward as a country and we deal with some of the major problems that as a building industry and a real estate industry that we're facing, which is a shortage of labor, really, and rising material prices, we need to, come up with solutions that are going to allow maybe a alternative method that has a more predictable process, but also has the ability to truly reduce construction costs because you can kind of build to the same standards over and over again. I mean, if you look at like the state of Texas, for example, one of the things that what they've done is created an industrialized housing program where a city might have local amendments, but for all intents and purposes, those local amendments don't apply to what the state is, ultimately permitting from a modular perspective.
You mentioned construction labor. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. I think anyone who studies the industry is thinking about that too. The average age of the construction worker is going up, and getting people into the trades just seems more and more challenging. So in terms of expansion for you, you've done a lot in California. Are you looking at other areas, or, it's a big state, so are you not considering expanding yet?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work in California, and that's certainly our first priority is, chasing the work that's in our backyard. But we've looked at and are actively pursuing projects in other states, primarily in the Western U.S. We're trying to stick to locations that are within a certain distance of our manufacturing facility. That being, the fact that transportation generally is a non-value added component to the modular process. So the closer you can get in proximity to the manufacturing facility, obviously the less of that non-value added component you have.
So I want to talk a little bit about what you've done with schools, because I think that's really interesting. You're using modular not just for multifamily, but you've also done schools. I saw that you did a winery as well. How is it different doing commercial projects with the shipping containers versus residential?
In a lot of ways, there's similarities, but with school projects, it's a little different in terms of how the design process normally works from our end. And what I mean by that is traditionally with like multifamily and residential multifamily, we are doing a design assist process where we basically are providing the information necessary for an owner's design team to be able to design a building around the CRATE system. With the schools, it's a little bit different in how that design process works. And that's because it's very highly regulated by the state of California. In terms of how the builds go, you're generally using the same means and methods, but it's just a difference in terms of the types of products and the standards for how you're constructing those buildings.
So do you work directly with developers, or are you working mostly with nonprofits? How is that working out?
We have a mix of clients. Primarily we're working with developers. We also work with contractors, and we do have nonprofit entities that we're working with, specifically on the homeless housing side of the equation.
And what's the lifespan for the homes? Is it similar to traditional construction?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the construction materials are the same as what you're doing, with a site-built project. In terms of the life cycle maintenance of a building, there's really no difference. And I know that, some people think, well, it's modular, so the building's not going to last as long. But in reality, because of the way that it's being built and put together, oftentimes you have a better performing building just by virtue of the modular construction method. So, what I mean by that is, a lot of times we call them mate walls. And what that is where two modules go together. Well, rather than a traditional 4-inch wall, that's a common wall between the units, we have double walls now. And so what that does is provide a more of a soundproof structure. So you don't necessarily hear what's going on in the unit next to you. And that same principle applies with the floor and ceiling assemblies, where you have somewhat of a redundant assembly. But from a acoustic performance, you certainly have a much better performing building. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Other aspects include the fact that everything that you're doing is very precise, and so things are being done in a way that you're designing this for the optimal performance of a building in the long term. in addition to what's best to manufacture the building.
So you mentioned LEED earlier. So is CRATE Modular LEED certifiable or BREEAM or any of the other certifications?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, basically, by virtue of selecting a modular method, you are almost at LEED Silver. There's really not much more that you need to do to be able to get to that. I mean, there's certain requirements, but that it goes a long way in helping you get there. And so CRATE has done LEED projects. We've done LEED Gold, I believe, is the highest that we've done, and we view that as an important element of demonstrating our capabilities. I think that as we move forward, those clients in particular have started asking about those requirements and wanting to be able to get LEED certified. And really, what they're looking for is being able to create better performing buildings that will ultimately reduce life cycle maintenance costs. Be healthier for individuals. All of the things that you're really looking to achieve as you're trying to build sustainable structures.
What do you think needs to happen in order for developers, investors, kind of everyone to have more awareness of modular construction and the benefits of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variety of things that need to happen. Modular construction makes up, probably about 4% of the overall construction put in place. And, that number, the awareness of the industry has grown. But what needs to happen is there needs to be more examples of successful projects because there are so many out there, and maybe it doesn't get highlighted enough. But really, we're kind of at this inflection point as a industry where we've got this, and this goes back to the labor issue, is that we've watched the construction labor force dwindle over the years, whether that's individuals aging out, whether that's individuals moving on to different industries because we've had a few, obviously the Great Recession caused people to reassess, whether they wanted to continue being involved in the construction industry. And so we haven't replenished those ranks. And, I think that's the biggest driver of utilization is that, we're coming to a utilization of modular. I mean, and so we're coming to a point where, we haven't done a good job of attracting younger people into the trades. And I think some of the ways you're going to be able to do that is through automation, through, the digitalization of construction. And I think that's where offsite construction methods really have an advantage, because what you're seeing is there's a lot of money that's being invested now in construction technology, and that technology lends itself to offsite fabrication. And, in my estimation, as an industry, as a construction industry, if we are able to promote, the tools that we're using to make things more precise and sustainable and reduce waste and improve construction efficiencies, I think we're going to be able to attract those individuals, younger people into the disciplines. And I think that, that'll help solve some of the issues that, we're facing, which is, you look at the lumber crisis, for example. It's not necessarily that they can't increase production. It's that the sawmills are also facing the same problem that the rest of the country is, which is there's no labor to be able to support that increase in capacity. And so that's where I think offsite has a huge advantage. So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer to address your point, but that's one of the elements that we need to do is be able to attract people into it and understand that we can be more efficient. But the other side of the equation too is being able to kind of change the model of how we develop projects. And so rather than going through this period with a traditional design where you get the intent on paper and then you figure out the details later, we need to be able to start thinking up front, like, okay, let's design this for production, right? And so when you're doing that, you're thinking of the project differently. You're thinking more along the lines of standardization. And so I think as the housing crisis becomes more acute, you're going to start to see developers that realize that, listen, I can get more product out of the ground quicker. And so that only helps increase my scale my ability to, get product to market, increase your return on investment, all of that. And so I think that, that's another element. And then obviously financing. I think we just need to figure out as an industry a way to get the lenders and the financial people in the industry to be able to look at this a little differently and understand that, there might be payments, the payment schedule and the draw schedules using modular may be a little bit accelerated, where you're much more front loaded than you would be on a traditional project. But rather than looking at that as a concern, I think it needs to be looked at as a benefit, because what that means is you've gotten to a point where, with modular, you need to have all of your specifications, your design, that all needs to be dialed in before the factory's ready to start running. And so what that does is provide you with a huge amount of cost certainty over what your project is going to be. So, generally with modular, you're trying to get to the point where there's zero change orders. And so that, I think, as a developer, the predictability of it to me would be huge, that I know, okay, I'm not going to get walloped with all of these change orders because designs weren't clear in the beginning or we didn't, vet something out. So, that's a message that needs to get across. And I think you're starting to see that because there's a lot of developers out there that are choosing this method. And, I think we're at this point now where people recognize there's an issue, and it's going to be a looming issue, that being labor being scarce. And how do we solve for that? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there's more awareness now around construction waste than there probably ever has been before. And modular, of course, is the way to solve that. And you mentioned that idea of a project not having any change orders, which is kind of amazing when you think of traditional construction. Architects don't always design knowing what is actually possible. And I know that sends a lot of, any project changes a bunch of times. So it's really, I think that's one of the things that you kind of hit on there, is that when you're designing with modular, it's a bit of a different process because you're able to be more accurate, more precise, kind of from the beginning, because you're really sort of putting things together in a different way than starting completely from ground up with stick-built construction.
Yeah, and 100%. And the thing is that modular really has the potential to do is kind of commoditize housing. And what I mean by that is you basically are, creating the library of components. That's, something that we're doing is, these are all the components that go into our modules, and we create that in Revit, and we give it to our clients, and then they can basically take those components and, we provide them the information necessary to design a building around our system. And so it is a different process, but at the end of the day, what it's going to allow you to do is replicate your design across multiple, sites. And so that's where the true economies of scale come in from a development standpoint, that, you can take something that's been designed once, and you're not necessarily going to have to pay the full freight of design to do that again if you look at your product that you're coming to market with in a way where it's, you're trying to standardize what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you and Crate Modular thinking about single family rentals, build to rent? We keep seeing these billions of dollars right now are going towards single family rentals and single family build to rent. What are you thinking about what's happening right now with that?
First of all, I agree. That's a very hot market right now. We historically have not done single family housing. But, what we've been looking at is being opportunistic with any markets that are attractive. It might be a new vertical that we want to get into. And so, the for rent market on single family housing is certainly something that we've been looking at. We have some developers that are looking at that along with us. And I think that you're going to see more of that, especially with the fact that housing prices have gone through the roof. Doesn't seem like they're coming down anytime soon. Interest rates seem like they're going to be low for, let's say the next 12 months or so. I guess depending on what happens. But, that doesn't seem like it's going to be going anywhere quickly. So I think there's a lot of people that, don't want to buy at the top of the market. And so I think that's where, you're seeing new products come online in that, build to rent arena in a lot of locations. And I think you're going to see that continue probably for the next 12 to 24 months, if not longer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So last question, what's next for CRATE Modular? How are you planning to expand?
We're looking to grow in a variety of ways. Here at our manufacturing facility in Southern California, we're in the process of adding staff because we are looking to really attack our pipeline here over the next 12 to 24 months. We are looking to expand into markets outside of California that makes sense for us. We've been bidding projects in other states. We think there's a lot of opportunity because there are several markets here on the West Coast that are very expensive to live in, very expensive to build in. And we think what we offer is a very cost certain, quick, and very affordable solution. And so we're going to be opportunistic about where those markets may lie. And then, as our pipeline grows, we're certainly open to expanding manufacturing capabilities in other markets. I come from a background of, companies that had multiple manufacturing facilities. And, there's been studies over the last, 5-6 years of, really where the markets are in the United States, where it's, extremely expensive to build. And so those are the areas where modular generally makes the most sense because, it's just a very competitive market. And when it's competitive, that not only means that prices are high, that also means that there is not necessarily the available workforce to be able to handle all of the demand for projects. And so, that's what we're going to have an eye on over the next, year or two is, where are those markets and where does it make sense for us to grow into? Because, as we look at all options, we have currently manufactured as a solely container-based company, but we're also looking to expand into light gauge metal offerings because we know there's a market for that, and we think it fits well with what our core capabilities are. And so, as we evaluate those opportunities, I fully expect there to be other CRATE facilities coming online here as we continue to grow. I mean, really, what we're trying to do is standardize, housing, and what I mean by that is, kind of take the approach where, all right, we have national contracts with, certain vendors, and we have a family of offerings, a menu, if you will, that you can get, good, better, best options in different colors that suit what you're trying to get to from the design side, but also use that as a way to leverage our procurement to be able to drive down prices for our customers.
And that then translates, of course, to renters, and all of that is good news for anyone who is interested in affordable housing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rich. Listeners can learn more about CRATE Modular at cratemodular.com. Stay well and stay invested. Thank you.
Thank you.